Interrupt you there because we're going back to the Peace Summit in Cairo. Let's listen in.
The civilians completely. We ask the international community to adopt a concrete pressure on Israel, and we refuse the double standard practiced by some parties on the international level. We need a serious move. We ask the international community to pressure Israel to lift the blockade on Gaza, to stop the military operation that has killed a lot of civilians. We reject categorically any forced relocation for the Palestinians. I'd like to express our disappointment because of the failure of the Security Council towards this matter, this crisis. Your Excellencies, Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, we ask for an immediate humanitarian, safe corridors for the international and national humanitarian assistances to reach the people of Gaza so as not to aggravate the current situation. We need to support the Palestinian people to restore its legitimate rights and to have his sovereign state on the Palestinian territories of 1967 according to the international resolutions. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was keen since the very beginning to coordinate with its partners in order to sort out the problem, and we hope this summit will urge the international community to move quickly to sort and solve out the problem for the Palestinians and the Israelis to have a serious dialogue on the Palestinian cause. We need peace that is lasting and comprehensive for the sake and welfare of everyone. The kingdom will continue its efforts in order to reach this goal. The utmost priority now is a ceasefire. We need to stop the bloodshed. We need to help those in need. We need to pave the way for circumstances that will lead to peace. Peace be upon you all. Thank you very much. Prince Faisal bin Farhan, Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The floor goes to Foreign Minister of Turkey.
His Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished heads of state and government, dear colleagues, excellencies, this is a crucial juncture where bloodshed prevails over restraint and common sense. Last couple of weeks have already left an indelible mark in our minds. Many of us still find it difficult to believe what has been unfolding. Thousands of innocent civilians are losing their lives in front of our eyes. The situation in Palestine has always been a tragedy. Now it is turning into carnage. There can be no excuse or reason for inflicting such a collective and cruel suffering on human lives, like the one happening in Gaza. We must be unequivocal in condemning and resisting loss of any single innocent life. The international community has to calibrate its actions and messages at this highly critical point. Israel should be urged that the temporary so-called victories did not bring long-term security in the course of history. It will not bring this time too. Israel exploits the solidarity of some countries as an open check for unleashing a blind rage on Palestinians, such a rage which even targets mosques and hospitals. On the other hand, I would like to remind that unconditional military aid to Israel or coercing regional countries to unrealistic and unsustainable plans serve nothing but deepening occupation. Because these policies omit, neglect, and ignore a vital part of the equation, the Palestinians. Insistence on such errors are in fact another sign that the current international order cannot produce solution to core problems. What this order produces is only erosion of universal values and distortion of facts on the ground. Up until now, Israel took advantage of this systemic failure. Israel distorts the sanctity of Masjid al-Aqsa and the status quo of the Muslim and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem, but brands it as religious tolerance. Israel grabs the lands, homes, and livelihoods of Palestinians in East Jerusalem and West Bank, but brands it as civilian settlements. Israel imprisons 2 million people in Gaza's narrow strip, unfit for decent human life, but calls it as a protection against terrorism. By dehumanizing Palestinian lives, Israel aims to normalize Palestinian suffering. We say never. Never for Palestinians, never for anybody else. If allowed, this crisis can spark wars of global scale through geographical escalation. But it can also serve as a ground for a just and lasting peace. Therefore, at this historic juncture, we have to set the track right. Turkey believes that a right track begins with the cessation of hostilities and unconditional humanitarian aid to Gaza. Simultaneously, we have to revitalize every effort to return to a peace process based on a two-state solution. An independent, sovereign, and contiguous state of Palestine along 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital is not only a must for peace, it is also the strategic imperative for international security and stability. I am sure we all agree on this. However, it is not enough. We have to go beyond agreeing and start implementing this vision. Furthermore, there should be a guarantee mechanism for monitoring, verifying, when needed, enforcing obligations of the parties in a just peace. Turkey remains ready to further develop this concept and share the responsibility for creating a dignified, just, and secure future for all. Our heartfelt gratitude goes to Egypt for this much timely gathering. Thank you very much.
أشكر السيد هاكان وزير خارجية تركيا على كلمته، وأدعو السيد مارو فيريرا وزير خارجية البرازيل لإلقاء كلمته، فليتفضل.
Okay, you have been watching the Peace Summit in Cairo, which has been led by the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who is trying to organise some sort of humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, as we see more bombardments rain down on the Gaza Strip over the last few hours. Well, it's just after 11 GMT, that's 2 p.m. in Gaza, where humanitarian aid is finally being delivered through the Rafah crossing with Egypt. It's taken 15 days and intense international diplomacy, but now trucks from the Red Crescent carrying food and medicine are on the move. Hamas says 20 vehicles are entering on Saturday. It's not clear how many more will be allowed in. Well, 2 weeks into the war, there's no let-up in Israel's bombardment of Gaza. The army has ordered the evacuation of 20 hospitals in the north ahead of possible airstrikes. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed in the past 24 hours. The total number since the strikes began is more than 4,200. The attacks by Hamas killed at least 1,400 Israelis. Diplomatic efforts to end the violence are intensifying. As we mentioned, Egypt is hosting world leaders at a summit in Cairo.
Egypt expresses its astonishment that the entire world is watching a humanitarian catastrophe that victimized 2.3 million people in Gaza Strip, that they are collectively punished, they are under siege, and the lack of the basic needs of life and relocation in practices that has been denounced by the modern world.
Well, also speaking at the Cairo Peace Summit was United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He spoke about his visit to the Rafah border crossing.
I went to the Rafah border crossing. There I saw a paradox, a humanitarian catastrophe playing out in real time. On the one hand, I saw hundreds of trucks teeming with food and other essential supplies. On the other hand, we know that just across the border, there are 2 million people without water, food, fuel, electricity, and medicine. Children, mothers, the elderly, the sick. Full trucks on one side,